My name is Dana Brunson. I'm the Executive Director for Research Engagement at Internet2. Internet2 is a mission-driven, community-based nonprofit that brings together over 500 member institutions, thousands of participating organizations, so that includes universities, research organizations, government agencies, industry partners, and regional networks. We deliver cyber infrastructure resources and services in support of that community. It includes the National Research and Education Backbone, Eduroam, and InCommon. I'm the PI on the National Science Foundation grant that supports this event, and I'm PI on a NAIRR Expansion Award focused on community engagement. And I'm very happy to see you all here, so thank you for coming. So I'd like to start by acknowledging that this meeting wouldn't be possible without the vision and sustained commitment of the National Science Foundation. In particular, I want to thank Katie and Tipis, whose leadership has been instrumental in guiding the NAIRR from concept to reality. I also want to thank our program officer, Sharmista Bagchi-Sen, and the amazingly helpful Al Suarez. Their support has been essential in making this meeting possible. We can clap for them. Thank you. I also want to thank my colleagues at Internet2 and across the organizing team, especially my co-PI, Lauren Michael. An event like this doesn't happen with a great program committee. They help design the program and review submissions. So raise your hand if you're on the program committee. Thank you all so very much. So, the NAIRR was envisioned as a national resource for the broadest possible swath of the research and education community, enabling not just flagship efforts, but the full range of academic domains and institutions across the country. AI is transforming every field and every sector, requiring and generating collaboration across the breadth of stakeholder groups. This event reflects that vision as an opportunity to capitalize on bringing together all of this talent in the same room to accelerate that transformation. So who's here, right? So in the room today, we have colleagues from federal agencies, national computing facilities, industry, nonprofits, and a full range of academic institutions, from community colleges to the nation's largest universities. We have infrastructure builders, researchers and educators, research computing facilitators, and the students and trainees who represent the future of this work. So 2/3 of you are here for the first time. So if you're one of those first-time attendees, can you raise your hand? Great, so thank you for being here. One of the best things we saw about last year's meeting is what happens when all of these kinds of communities come together in the same room. Too often everybody goes to their own meetings and siloed in their own communities. This week, we're together. So my charge to all of you, talk to someone you don't know this week, either in a breakout session, over coffee, at the poster and demo sessions. The people in this room are your coalition. So take the time to make those connections. Later on this morning, Lauren, I'll tell you more about the program ahead, but first, I'm excited to turn things over to our friends from the National Science Foundation and the Office of Science and Technology Policy. We're grateful for that NSF and OSTP have continued to champion the NAIRR as a national priority. That sustained commitment is what makes weeks like this possible. So please join me in welcoming Brian Stone from the U.S. National Science Foundation. Brian is performing the duties of the NSF Director.
Well, good morning. I'm going to use that, the Office of Science and Technology Possible. So that's a good one. So this is that moment. I have a set of prepared remarks. When you do these jobs and have a long title like performing the duties of, they give you remarks. You have to decide whether am I going to use those. So I'm going to use some of them. I'm going to start with the important part, which is all the thank yous. So like Dana did, it takes a lot of people to do these kind of big endeavors. So, first of all, I want to thank all of you for being here. I understand like 30% of the folks here are students. That warms our heart at the National Science Foundation. There's 660 projects that you all have in the NAIRR, which is amazing for the amount of time that we've had to do this. We've got 14 federal agency partners. I hate to call folks out, but I know there's people from DOE, there's folks from NASA, NIH here, so thanks for all of your support. It's great when the government works together to like do big things, and that's what we try to do. Our 28 private sector partners, like we could not do this without the contributions that you put in, and the $100 million, that's real money that you're putting in to really advance things. And also, I want to thank Assistant to the President and Director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy, Michael Kratsios and his team. You'll hear from Sahau, but look, we have tremendous support from Michael and his folks. They put the NAIRR into the AI action plan, and that means a lot. It means that we can put it in budgets, we get support for it. So it takes a lot of people to make these things possible. So I'll start with the thank yous. We're very excited about where we are with the NAIRR. I think you all know we're building this scalable infrastructure that can support us into the future, and we're about to hit that point where we're going to start scaling up. We expect to fund the NAIRR Operating Center later this year, and that's very exciting for us. The thing that I want to tell you that on a personal level that I'm most excited about is, so I spent a little time looking through all the projects that you all are doing. And I'm struck at the depth of things that are already in the system, the things that you've proposed. When we talk about, for example, using AI for science, you're already doing those things. When I look at the list, it's every discipline. At NSF, when we go up on the hill, we say, well, we fund everything from astronomy to zoology, from the far reaches of the universe to the bottom of the ocean. But that's the stuff that we're already seeing in the NAIRR, and that's 2 years in. That's amazing. So the work that you're doing, when we talk about unlocking the discoveries of the future, NSF, we like to say we're where discoveries begin. It's the work that you're doing. We've got 274 Nobel laureates that have their roots back to NSF. There's probably a Nobel laureate in this room. So remember us. Remember us in this meeting when you go off to do greatness. But it's just so exciting to see the kinds of things that you're doing. And that's where I think the real acceleration is going to take place. When we talk to members of Congress and folks, they're like, well, why are you putting money into AI when industry is putting all this stuff in? It's because of the outputs that we're going to get. We're going to unlock all the science. We've had 75 years of collecting data and putting it on repositories. The stuff that we were able to do with AlphaFold, imagine doing that for every discipline. And that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges that we're dealing with at NSF. So when we say we're putting this amount of money into AI, what we're really doing is we're putting that amount of money in all the science disciplines. Again, like I said, we've got geophysics projects, we've got physics, we've got material science, all the things that you all know are in there. So we're having to evolve how we think about how we budget for things. People like to look at NSF and they like to look in and say, okay, that's my part. I'm an astrophysicist, there's a line for astrophysics. Well, they're going to have to get comfortable to the fact that they're going to see a line for artificial intelligence, and they'll be able to get a piece of that too. And that's why you all are on the cutting edge here today. So thanks for being the first movers. I'm very excited about it. I also think it's great that we've got so many educators, like I said, and students here. We care deeply about building the next generation of researchers. And it's the work that you're going to do that's going to make all that possible. So from all of us at NSF, I want to thank Katie. I want to thank the team. You've got all of our support, but we can't do it without the work that you do. So thank you very much, and it's great to be here today. And the last thing I'll do is I'll introduce my colleague, Dr. Sahau Wang, the Senior Policy Advisor for AI and Emerging Technology at OSTP. Sahau?
Thank you so much, Brian, and thank you all so much for being here. It's an amazing crowd. I was an AI researcher in academia not very long ago. It's not a very good one, which is why I got into policy. But I remember just a few years ago in my academic lab at MIT trying to get compute resources, and I think we were very lucky because our university had our own MIT supercloud, which gave university students access to A100s at scale. But even then, I think it was a pretty big struggle because every time before NeurIPS or iClear submissions, we would all be rushing to the supercloud cluster trying to get time, and it would be fully booked. So we would have to go to the Harvard cluster because across the street they would be less hardworking and there's less utilization in that cluster. But I think beyond that, there was also a number of other resources we could try to cobble together. I think we're also very grateful. This was before NAIRR existed, so we're very grateful to have DOE support, and there were supercomputers there. But it took us a while to figure out how to program them, and I think, frankly, using different compute clusters across MIT and Harvard was very challenging. And then furthermore, our research lab bought a lot of RTX 3090s and 4090s because of a quirk in compute procurement. And so we had a lot of those GPUs sort of sitting under our desks, gathering dust, because they had 24 gigs of GDDR instead of having 80 gigs of HBM that the A100s had, and our models were all too big to fit in them. And so I think all that is to say, I came into this job having a very keen understanding of what the compute landscape looked like for academia and for researchers, and the need to bring them together into a unified resource. And I think in terms of administration policy, as we think about AI research, academia plays an incredibly important role in supporting our AI ecosystem today. I think this year, industry is set to spend around $700 billion into building AI supercomputers, which is about twice the amount total spent on the Apollo program and the Manhattan Project combined. So that's a huge amount of investment into the AI industry. But none of this investment works if we don't support the foundational research in next generation AI systems that is happening in academia. And so I think as we work through the budgetary system, as we work to prioritize AI research, there's a few areas that we have highlighted as an administration. One is the foundational research that advances next generation AI systems, knowing that, for instance, the research on neural networks was funded at the National Science Foundation a few decades ago. Two is work on things like AI interpretability, robustness, and control that academia could have a very important role in ensuring that next generation AI systems are economically valuable. Open source ecosystems, many of which are maintained by users of NAIRR and users of academic compute. Very importantly, AI for science. The National Science Foundation, as Brian was talking about, supports the scientific enterprise broadly. And so when we think about AI, it is not just AI research itself, but how AI is applied in biology, in weather simulations, in drug discovery, et cetera. And so we want to make sure that across the scientific ecosystem, people are supported and people have the resources to be able to use cutting edge compute. And then of course, workforce development. When we think about the AI industry, a lot of people who are going to the top frontier labs are getting paid $50, $100 million per year. A lot of the students in this room are not. And so we would like to make use of you guys before you make those salaries to make contributions for America. And so I think in terms of how we think about compute and NAIRR, there's a few things that the White House has done at the Office of Science and Tech Policy. One is really highlighting NAIRR within the AI Action Plan and the importance of that for our agenda across AI. Two is working with the National Science Foundation and with Brian to make sure that we prioritize NAIRR as research infrastructure that's really important in supporting all of you guys. And I think that's a very high ROI item that the federal government can invest in. And then three, as our office spins up the Genesis mission and coordinates interagency actions between Department of Energy, National Institute of Health, Food and Drug Administration, NASA, NSF, all of which have unique data sets and assets, we want to make sure that it's all interoperable and that we can bring the benefits of the Genesis mission to researchers that are funded by NSF. So all that is to say that we have a lot of work to do, but it's really great to see the progress that's been happening with NAIRR. It's great to see all the people in this room, and excited also to see that NAIRR is transitioning away from a pilot to have a formal operating center. So thank you all so much for being here. I'm excited to talk to you all about the projects that are happening.
All right, Brian left his phone up here, so I'm going to just hand Brian his phone. All right, good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see everyone here today. You know, the NAIRR started with a vision, and that was a vision that in this time of dramatic technology change and disruption, that it was absolutely critical, that it was essential that the research and the education communities be able to contribute to those foundational discoveries, those translational and application impacts that drive all sectors of our economy. And really to do what this community does best, which is to train the next generation. And with the partnership of the people in this room today, we set off on a proof of concept. I will note it was an untested proof of concept when we started 2 years ago, that could we come together and provide the critical resources and services to really unlock the ingenuity of the research and education communities. Recognizing that it was just too critical of a time not to tap all the talent that we have across our country. So we set off to do a pilot, and I can say 2 years in, we didn't do a small pilot, and we didn't do a narrowly focused pilot, and that is really because of the overwhelming support of everyone in the room here today. Our private sector partners have made significant and ongoing contributions. Our agency partners have been engaged through the NAIRR Steering Committee for the last 2 years, and I will say that does not always happen with interagency groups. And you know, our NAIRR pilot operations teams have been fantastic. They've taken a small amount of direction and just sprinted to provide the services to the community. And I also want to thank our NSF program officers. I want to call out Al Suarez, Sharon Geva, Wen Tung, and Marlon Pierce, who have just been absolutely fantastic and are been working around the clock on the NAIRR. So in the last 2 years, the people in this room have demonstrated the concept of the NAIRR and built momentum for this program, showing not only immediate science impacts and the demand for resources, but I would say also the demand for a community, the demand to share and the urgent need to share expertise and know-how across domains. And so you are the budding NAIRR community students. This is for you, that you are the future. And we're now at this critical phase where we are transitioning from the NAIRR pilot to the sustainable NAIRR infrastructure. So with that, what I'd like to share with you now are a retrospective, looking back on the last 2 years, what's changed and what's new in the NAIRR, and then also looking forward and where we plan to go from here. All right, well, you've heard from Brian and Sahal, but I will start, if you're new to the NAIRR, with the broad vision. The vision of the NAIRR is to provide an infrastructure for the research and education communities to drive AI innovation and discovery. And we know there are significant challenges around computing and computing access. The NAIRR was envisioned to be a really holistic program that would provide researchers and educators not only the computing access, but access to data sets and models, the tools, and really critically, the expertise and the user support in order to be able to use these critical resources. And so there's 4 key goals for the NAIRR that we've laid out. One was to accelerate AI and AI-powered innovation, to train the next generation AI workforce, increase the capacity and integration of world-class resources from both the private and public sector, and to advance AI interpretability, security, and trust. As you heard, the NAIRR is a priority for this administration. The NAIRR is called out prominently in the AI Action Plan, and also the 1-year highlights from this administration. And the AI Action Plan calls for NSF to build the foundations for a sustainable and scalable NAIRR, and that is what we are doing. To give you a 2-year retrospective of the NAIRR in one slide, let me share how this all started. We started 2 years ago really building strong public and private partners. We reached out to our private sector partners, different agency partners, and had contributions from all of these entities. And we really spent the most of the first year of the pilot really loosely integrating these resources and making them available through a common portal, nairpilot.org, where researchers could request and access resources and get matched to kind of the appropriate resource, whether that was from the public or private sector. And at this point, NAIRR is supporting over 600 different projects, supporting 6,000 different students across every single state in the country. And I'll note, I think we have representatives from 49 states here today. We are missing Alaska, who apparently the University of Alaska is on spring break. So they are not here. I don't know why you wouldn't want to do spring break in DC, but we'll get them next time. Okay, so that was sort of, year one, 9 months into the pilot. And then we really started to build out different pathways, right? Reaching out, funding projects that are reaching out to new communities to train and educate the communities about the NAIRR. We funded demonstration projects, infrastructure demonstration projects that were using and developing infrastructure in novel ways. We launched the NAIRR Classroom Initiative because we heard constantly from educators that this is great for the research teams, but I need some help in my classrooms as well. And then in the last 6 months, we've really been turning to lay the foundations for a sustainable and scalable NAIRR. We released a solicitation for the NAIRR Operating Center. We have, we're integrating more data resources and data infrastructure and really preparing for the future. If you'd like to learn more about this, you can check out the NAIRR Progress Update document that was just released last week. It describes in much more detail what's happened in the last 2 years of the NAIRR. I want to acknowledge our agency partners and our private sector partners that have been fantastic to work with. They have contributed not only computing, I'd say that's one aspect, but what's been incredibly valuable is the contributions of expertise, the partnerships, the different tools and models and data sets that we brought together into kind of this holistic program here. And I also want to note, this is a real true public-private partnership. This isn't a public-private partnership in name only. When you look at the projects that are supported by the NAIRR, you can see the contributions of our partners. And they are very real and meaningful, and we appreciate their continued engagement. There are hundreds of science highlights, and you're going to hear about so many of them today, the different tracks and breakout sessions. I'm just going to highlight 3 right here, today, now. And the first one I want to highlight is from a researcher from University of Alabama, Sujit Roy, who was developing a foundation model for heliophysics. This work is supported by NASA and NSF. And the research challenge here was really how to improve the accuracy and reliability of space weather predictions. And so this researcher was matched with the NVIDIA DGX resource, where he and his team had dedicated access to this resource for a few months, had a lot of engagement with the NVIDIA experts, and developed this foundation model that really enhanced the weather forecasting capabilities for space weather. This model and the data sets are now available through Hugging Face. And I last talked to my NASA colleagues and looked at the data. And the model had been downloaded over 2,000 times, many by industry that are leveraging and using some of the outputs from this research. On kind of the other side of the spectrum, I liked how Brian Stone described, the far reaches of the universe to the tiniest organisms under in the oceans. What we see through the NAIRR pilot is research spanning all different domains. And this is research from a researcher, Zoe Chen, at Cornell University. And she was really looking at a fundamental question of how can you better understand how AI agents perform different spatial reasoning tasks. And so she and her colleagues built a 3D simulation environment for spatial reasoning called NotGym, which was looking at how these agents can tie and untie knots. And what they found is different models and agents did pretty well kind of at untying knots, but if you got into any type of knot complexity, they did not perform very well. This was research that used the UT Austin Frontera system and the Delta system at UIUC, and the work was presented at the NeurIPS conference in December. I also wanted to highlight some work from the education community. This is some work by a researcher at Arizona State University that was looking at investigating how AI can be used in personalized education. And what was really interesting, so this researcher and her team were looking at a physics example of how can you teach students about position over time using embodied AI with a cell phone. But the research really comes in on how do you provide that right feedback to students, right? You don't want to just give the answer. You have to have the AI, pose questions that make the student, think about how to learn these concepts. And so she used resources from AWS as well as a Claude model through the NAIRR pilot to develop this tool. Okay, so what's new in the NAIRR in the last year? I wanted to reflect on what we heard last year. Last year's meeting was fantastic. We had so many students and educators and researchers here. And this is some of the feedback that we heard from all of you. We heard we need a faster and easier way to get started and experiment with these resources. We heard from you that we need more onboarding and support help. We need more office hours. We need more mechanisms to work with experts. What else did we hear? We heard that the community could really benefit from mentoring programs and support for smaller institutions and how to make competitive submissions. We heard constantly about data infrastructure challenges, data challenges continuing to be a pain point and a challenge. And we heard issues around how to work with data that needed enhanced privacy and security infrastructure. And finally, I think my favorite comment from the meeting last year was, how can we go from this shopping cart approach to resources to building a more integrated ecosystem? So I wanted to share some of the progress I think we've made in the last year. I know that NSF folks, we have our ears out. We're listening to the feedback. Our operations teams, they're listening on how we can improve the NAIRR for the community. So the first is that over the last year, compared to last year, there are significantly expanded trainings and office hours and user support. So you can go to nairrpilot.org, help, and see many different opportunities to engage with and sign up for different workshops or see videos from past workshops. You can request time to speak with an expert as well. There's also a new startup track where you can very quickly, in less than 1 week, gain access to a very small amount of resources for a short period of time. The next thing that was new from last year is that we made awards through our NAIRR pilot expansion Dear Colleagues letter. And so there's about 20 different NAIRR pilot expansion awards. Maybe some of you are part of that community here. And I'm just gonna highlight 2 of them here. One of them is outreach regionally in Iowa. And this awardee is working with the different colleges in the state of Iowa to provide kind of summer programs and seminars for how researchers can learn to use these NAIRR resources. The project on the right is a really interesting project. The PI is Marianne Lung from Sustainable Research Pathways. And this is an effort that is matching students and faculty, often from smaller colleges or first-generation scholars, with NAIRR with NAIRR pilot research teams over the summer for internship programs. I'm curious, is anyone here part of that summer matching program? Can you raise your hand? Okay, good. Actually, I can't see many hands because the lights are really bright. Okay, and so the next thing we started in this last year was an opportunity for researchers to work more deeply with some of our partners on the NAIRR. And we heard this actually from our private sector partners too, as they really like a mechanism to work more closely and deeply with a smaller number of teams. And so we launched the Deep Partnerships track. And this is, again, an opportunity for a smaller number of teams to really engage with researchers at our different partners. So there is a panel tomorrow at, I think, 11 a.m. where you can hear about this first Deep Partnership track. We also have an open Deep Partnerships call right now. So you can, if you go onto the NAIRR pilot website, you can see the open opportunities under that Deep Partnerships track. One is with the National Secure Data Service. That is a way that researchers can gain access to statistical data in a secure way. So if that's in your research area, I would take a look at that. Another opportunity is with Lexset. This is a really interesting opportunity for collaboration. They have a tool that will can create synthetic data. If your research requires an augmented data set, I would really check out that deep partnership opportunity. And then OpenMind has an opportunity around privacy enhancing technologies as well. And then I'm excited to announce also coming soon, opening April 15th. I'm told it's going to be April 15th. There will be an opportunity for researchers to apply for large-scale science, deep partnerships through the Leadership Class Computing facility. This facility is just coming online now and is going to provide a significant amount of compute capabilities, GPU access for the research community. So if you have large-scale needs, this is something to track. Let's see. Another thing we heard from the community was around the challenges around data, and so we really wanted to take a step in the pilot in enabling the research communities to contribute data sets to the NAIRR. Now this is tricky, and of course there's thousands of scientific data sets across the country. What we did here is really stick, I think, a toe in the water to see what is the mechanism we could use to enable the communities to submit data sets. And so what we did is we focused on data sets in a call to the community that were focused on education use cases. So are there data sets that would help a newcomer to the community get up and running? So if you're an educator out there, you're thinking about what you may want to use in your classroom, there are a number of data sets available now through the NAIRR pilot. Some are really lightweight. Just call out there's the AI for shipwrecks data set from the Great Lakes. It's only about like a gigabyte, so it's small. It's something you can use in a classroom. I personally didn't know there were so many shipwrecks in the Great Lakes, but there are, and you can train models for them too. Next, we also heard folks were having a lot of challenges when they were doing research with with data sets that needed a higher level of security. And so our colleagues in the Department of Energy Office of Science and NIH have been leading the NAIRR Secure Working Group throughout the duration of the pilot. And they have been working on 3 pretty large-scale demonstration projects. And tomorrow afternoon, there will be a panel there where they're sharing some of the lessons learned from the NAIRR Secure effort. And I would encourage you to check out that panel if you're working with data that needs like a higher level of security or protection. And then finally, I think we've made some progress moving from the shopping cart model of resources to integrating resources together. One of our NAIRR demonstration projects, the National Data Platform, is really integrating some of the data sets that I just highlighted, as well as really kind of a lightweight ways to launch notebooks and provide access to educators and resources. So I'd encourage you to check out some of our demonstration project highlights as well today. Okay, then looking towards the future directions for the NAIRR. I mean, we are just thrilled at where we are today. I think we've demonstrated the pilot. I think we've outgrown the pilot here, and we are moving from this pilot stage to what I call this phase where we're in the NAIRR foundations. And through this, we are planning to award a NAIRR operating center this fiscal year. Fingers crossed, it will happen this fiscal year. And that will really help us be the foundation for scaling the NAIRR, and that operating center will manage the day-to-day operations of the NAIRR. I would expect next year at this time, you'll be hearing from the director of the NAIRR Operating Center on the state of the NAIRR. And from there, we'll have the foundations to really be able to scale the NAIRR. Of course, that will depend ultimately on kind of funding that our stakeholders provide to us, but we're going to be prepared to scale up, providing more services to the community, integrating resources, and training the next generation. A couple of our thrust areas for next year include integrating more data resources and data services into the NAIRR. We are also very seriously looking at how we can support the next generation of community data sets that will provide discoveries across different fields. And we are also really seriously looking at creating educational hubs across the country where students can really gain hands-on access to resources a lot earlier in their career. So with that, we are just thrilled at the state we are here in the NAIRR, and with all of your support here today. We have learned so much from the last 2 years of the NAIRR pilot. And so if I stop and kind of reflect on where we have come, I think this public-private partnership model that we have put together has been incredibly beneficial. And it's something, I don't think the public sector, we could have done this alone. I don't think the private sector could have done this alone either. It's really taken a partnership in order to move forward. Another key lesson learned is all of you have huge demands for resources. We know that, we feel it. We're working to scale to meet all of your requirements. And we see the demand for resources, but also ultimately the demand for and need for knowledge sharing, expertise, and to help beginners and newcomers really learn how to use these resources. So we heard you there as well. We know data access and remains a central challenge. We're working on some programs in that area. And finally, and we could use all of your help in making sure that we can measure the impact, share the benefits, and the results of the NAIRR work with the broader community. So I think with that, I'm happy to take some questions from the community here. And then after that, we'll hand it back to Lauren and Dana.
Thank you, Katie. So we have microphones here in the aisles where during the plenary session Q&A, you can walk up to one of those microphones. If it's easier for us to bring you a microphone, we can do that too. But any questions for Katie? You can line up at these microphones. Feel free, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie, for the overview. My name is Biplal Srivastava from University of South Carolina. I'm just wondering, with respect to the new initiatives and the data sets, community data sets, as you were mentioning, what kind of licensing are you thinking about? Because one of the concerns which I have seen is that communities have their unique data sets. If they contribute, do they lose control over it, and things like that. And that's what they think is very precious for them, and maybe the context around it is probably used. So any thought around licensing or what kind of control those communities can have? Thank you.
Right. So in the pilot, we really focused on open scientific data sets or data sets that really would benefit from more users or community engagement. I think that is a continued focus on the NAIRR. It's a focus of the White House on open source and open models and open data. We know there are challenges with secure data sets, and so we have a few pilots going in that area. But I think we will probably lean towards more open data sets. I'll note, it was really interesting. We worked with the interagency working group on, what were the criteria we were going to use to judge if a data set could be accepted into the NAIRR. And it brings up obviously many questions, but what we really focused on was transparency. So we didn't say you had to have this metadata standard. We said, please describe what your metadata standard is. And we didn't say your data had to meet some quality metric. We said, describe what quality measures you have taken to for this community or this data set before it's submitted, so that the reviewers could assess that. And I think one of the questions is, what are the access mechanisms, or what are the access? So I think we're leaning towards transparency and disclosing that to the research community.
Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, Katie. I know it's a interagency effort, but to ask an inside NSF one, one thing I kind of was struck with was I didn't see a lot of the large facilities represented, which could be notoriously difficult ships to turn and to get new things. Is there any thoughts or ideas of how some of the other big NSF investments could align and leverage NAIRR?
So the major facilities at NSF. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that question. So, I think maybe for those who aren't familiar, NSF funds and supports many major facilities across the country, whether these are telescopes or detectors, and how could they use those resources. Yeah, thanks for those questions. They're absolutely in scope. I think we do have users probably in this community that are from those facilities. I do think that might be interesting in the future to see if there's a particular mechanism we can use to reach out to them more. One of them might be through the CI Compass community, for example. I think that's a good point.
Things are moving so quickly in artificial intelligence. What does success look like for NAIRR in, say, the 1 year to 5 year time frame? Is it measured in terms of number of people affected, or collaborations facilitated, or what do you see as the KPI that indicates that the project has been successful? Yeah,
thank you. So the pilot, I would say, was a proof of concept. And at this phase, we're moving towards, the sustainable NAIRR, and how to measure those outputs will be really key and important. Something we're also looking at right now is bringing in an external evaluation entity to independently assess the impacts of the program. So the outcomes we're looking at really follow those 4 key goals of the NAIRR. So, the first is driving AI-powered discovery. And so for that, we look at high impact science outcomes. We also do look at publications. I think sometimes that can be very abstract to describe that to stakeholders. So really some of the high impact science outcomes. The second goal is really training the next generation workforce. And so there, we would look at, students that are supported through the NAIRR. We'll also we're looking at a mechanism of can we track kind of students over time, and do they end up in a better, if they came through the NAIRR or different programs, do they end up in better jobs or have other contributions that non-NAIRR participants have not. That can be a little tricky to measure because of the drop in the bucket challenges. The third goal was around integrating public and private sector resources. That's a little easier and quantitative for us to measure. And the fourth is, I would say, the trickiest, which is advancing AI interpretability, trust, and security. So in that sense, I think we will look at the projects that we have funded in that area. Have we made a dent in to advance those fields of interpretability and trust? We're also, one thing we're tracking is startups that come out of NAIRR pilot users, and I think we have our first breakout startup from a NAIRR supported researcher. So I hope that helps. I think it's something we're developing. We'll develop with an independent team as well, evaluator with the operating entity. I think you have to go to the mic.
It's very good to have meeting like this, yes? But between meeting, how to find colleagues that work with the same problem what I work? Do you have something like journal? I don't know. Between meetings.
Oh, between meetings.
Between meetings, yes.
Okay. Yes, you don't want to just talk to each other once a year. I think there's a number of events that the NAIRR pilot teams are putting on to try to keep the community connected. There's NAIRR pilot showcases that are once a quarter or so, and some different ways to engage. There's not a NAIRR journal, if that was your specific question.
Thanks, Katie. Last year we saw a visual of the different domains the projects are in: agriculture, astronomy. Does that visual exist somewhere? Are we going to see it this week? I think that was something that stuck out to me, and to see the growth from year 1 to year 2 in the different domains, that'd be helpful for the federal agencies, I think.
Sure, yeah. So I think Dave Hart, who's in the back, he's going to include that in his presentation. I actually looked at Dave's slide, so I didn't use the same graphics. I will note many researchers put their self-labeled category as AI, but then when you kind of read the abstract, you saw it was for a biomedical application. So Dave, I believe, used AI to, instead of the human categories, to create that graphic. And we're happy to get USDA like that, that breakdown too.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, John May, USC. Speaking related to the request for support and community between meetings, I'm wondering if you'd consider something like a Slack workspace or Mattermost or a Discord channel. I found that in a number of other projects, a modest investment in that has helped for people to, have random questions about engagement, and also for you to be able to push to a targeted community in a way that's different from like just seeing email blasts about, various initiatives, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm going to let maybe someone in the operations team can answer that. Is there
there's a Slack workspace?
Yeah, I think there's something. Here, I'll give it to Shelley. Shelley leads our user engagement.
Yeah, we already have a Slack channel that is populated from folks who have. And I should pass the mic to my deputy director, Alana Romanell, in the back, but there's a Slack channel and you can join it, and what we can do is provide a QR code or something along those lines, send out an invitation if we can get the email addresses for the folks from this meeting, and I think some folks are there, so already.
Yeah, if you could put it into the app or something, we'd probably all be able to.
Yeah, I don't know if I know how to do that, but we'll get it to you.
We'll get it. Yeah, no, this is a great first connection. So.
Hey there, Brandon Kellogg from CUW Wisconsin. My question is, how would educators who are newer to the NAIRR program, what's the best way that we can get involved with some of the resources or the pipeline to getting involved with some of the cool things that you're offering quickly and efficiently?
Right, so there's a number of resources that are available through the NAIRR Classroom initiative where you can get resources for your classes right away. Then there's different, if you go to like the help section on nairrpilot.org, you can get connected to a lot of the support teams that can get you into the right, it sort of depends on what you want to do, but that inroad on the help and support team is probably a first place. And then maybe meeting different colleagues here today can give you some ideas. There was a tutorial session, yesterday, and I guess it's already today, so you can't go to that one. But I think you can talk to the folks that maybe led some of those tutorials on getting started.
I'll add, we're also planning to reach out to tutorial presenters who I haven't spoken with verbally yet to ask if you'd like to provide us with a URL through which folks could access all of the materials through your tutorial, and we can make that available through the proceedings for the conference. I got a lot of nods and agreement on that, so you'll have an opportunity to distribute your materials if you're interested.
Hi, Manaswita from Harvard. So I just wanted to understand if there is a breakdown or do we have a sense of how efficiently the resources are being utilized and through these NAIRR programs that could potentially help us decide how much to scale? Because launching jobs is different than being able to utilize GPUs efficiently.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we all know probably some resources are not, using every single cycle on the system. That is kind of the reality, and having our resource provider teams at the advanced computing centers be able to really work and support researchers to make sure you're using those resources efficiently, helping improve the performance. That kind of happens at the resource provider level. So if you're matched with a particular system, that team there can help you. I will say I do think it's a gap. I think there's a big opportunity here for us to do more to make sure that these really expensive resources, we're getting the most out of them.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Tom Marsay from Washington and Lee University. I'm curious, as you're looking at expanding NAIRR and reaching more individuals, what are your plans for outreach, particularly around smaller institutions that may not be aware of NAIRR and just don't know what they know?
Right, yeah. I mean, awareness is a challenge, and then for those who are aware, how do they get started? So we have a NAIRR user engagement team that we're supporting. So they're doing a fantastic job. That's Shelley Knuth and Alana Romanella, who are leading that effort. And then we have also supported, I think, about 20 different outreach efforts. One is focused on small colleges. I don't know if Tracy's in the room here, but one of them is kind of focused on small and emerging research institutions. So that might be another way to get involved. Tracy, why don't you?
Yeah, so Tracy Camp from the Computing Research Association. We have 6 different groups. So depending if your institution matches one of those groups, I encourage you to look at when their conference is. And many of the investigators on these 6 different groups are here. If you could stand quickly. We have a 4-year group, so that's Jared over there. We have a Research Emerging for Smaller Programs. That's Gabby here, and I know Rhea is also there. We have an MSI group. That's Winston. There from Hawaii Hilo. Marius is here from Research Emerging Large Computing Programs. We don't have anyone here from HBCU, but we do have community college. Melanie is here. So if you are in one of those categories, I encourage you to talk to the investigator here. And Katie, thank you for the shout out to those projects.
Yeah, I don't know if those are up on the NAIRR pilot website, but we can try to make some connections there.
And yeah, they're definitely on the Computing Research Association's website. And yeah, they're on the pilot website as well. I think we have one page that links to all of them on the pilot website, or you can find it on cra.org.
Yeah, so those workshops are actually some of them are just happening now, so it's a very timely question.
And there's a panel tomorrow that will feature Tracy, and you'll get to hear about a little bit of that work on the panel tomorrow morning. All right. Well, thank you all for those questions. Dane, I think you've got one more.
Oh, yeah, PI prerogative. One more question, Katie. So one, thank you and all your colleagues. We've observed that you all have been working very, very hard lately. And I wondered, what we in this room can do to support you.
Yeah, I think there's a few things I would ask the folks in this room. One is if you can share with your colleagues about the NAIRR. So there's only so many presentations and webinars we or our operating programs can do, but we see a lot of times the word of mouth. There's little sparks. We'll get a research request from a small school, and then we'll get 5 others a month later. So we know there's some network effects, and I think universities, there's always students coming in and out. That's always going to be a challenge, but if you can really share the resources that are available with your friends and colleagues, that would be fantastic. 2, continue to do fantastic work. When you all do great work and research, our job is easy. So stay focused on that amazing research. And then 3, I think we're in this transition phase where we will have an operating center soon, in a number of months. In the interim, I think continuing to share highlights of your outcomes with us will be really, really important. You could also share it with Dana's team too, that does outreach and communication for the NAIRR pilot. So those are some of the things I think you can do to help us. You also definitely should serve as a reviewer. Okay, and so if you have a request or an allocation through the NAIRR pilot, someone reviewed your request and proposal. And so if you can do the same, reach out to John Towns and the allocations teams. I think they're always looking for great reviewers that come in and help and support.
Okay, so just, thank you again, Katie. The energy and purpose you've brought to this effort have made such an enormous difference, and we are all grateful. So my colleague Lauren Michael is joining me. She's co-PI on this grant and has designed this program. So thank you all again for being here. Do we have the clicker? We're waiting for the slides to move over. So I think first what we'll do is thank the program committee. The slide of them will be up in just a second. But first we can make them say themselves once again. Program committee, raise your hands. So thank you so much. So you may recognize all these folks. So they represent a cross-section of what we discussed earlier, right? They're resource awardees, research and classroom types, industry partners, resource provider representatives, members of the operations teams and expansion teams. The committee provided input on the overall program, specific sessions. They served as submission reviewers and will represent, there'll be the majority of, you'll see session facilitators and moderators across the breakout sessions. So thank you all very much for your contributions. It was a lot of work. Also, oh, there it is. There we go. So, in here, so I want you to get a little exercise. So I want to, going back, let's make sure we know who all is here. So if you are a NAIRR pilot allocation awardee or on the team of one, raise your hand. Good. All right. You're the majority here. How about if you're a demonstration or expansion project or a community data set provider? Awesome. Thank you all so much. How about a resource provider? And some of you will keep your hands up if you're one of our private sector partners. Good. Thank you all very much for being here. And federal agency representatives. Great. They're all clustered. Oh, there's a few over there. So, it takes a village. And I will say this repeatedly over and over and over again, is like what makes this meeting special is that we are all here, right? So take advantage of meeting all these different people and building those connections. A little stats. So our registration numbers, we hit our 600 goal. Well, actually, we might have gone over that, but luckily some people canceled. Like I said earlier, 2/3 of you are first-time attendees. I don't know if I want to make you raise your hand again, but please enjoy yourselves today. And as Katie mentioned, we did get the 49 states, DC and Puerto Rico. The Alaskans are on spring break, but rest assured, there are NAIRR pilot awardees in Alaska. They're just very busy. So let's see. So lastly, I just want to acknowledge the students, the postdocs, and other trainees who make up the 30% of the attendees here. So please again, raise your hands because you're what makes this fun. Okay, so I think we've talked about the goals of the NAIRR itself, but the goals of the meeting. So first thing we want to do, and this is the easy one, is celebrate and highlight the education and training activities, materials, opportunities, and research outcomes achieved during the NAIRR pilot's second year, and to demonstrate the impact and share successful approaches. We also want to raise awareness of the career pathways, professional development opportunities, and to cultivate a workforce capable of advancing AI research and applications in the US. Second goal, exchange knowledge, build community and collaborations among NAIRR researchers, educators, resource providers, working groups, operations teams, demo projects, and expansion teams to share experiences. That'll be a harder task. You'll get to do a lot of that this afternoon. We want to build and broaden collaborations among stakeholders, enhance innovative science, and expand NAIRR's reach to new and emerging AI communities. So this is where you'll have to go tell all your friends. Third, catalyze and expand cross-sector partnerships. This is across public and private sectors, industry and government, to develop strategic engagement frameworks that support the transition from pilot to full-scale NAIRR. And lastly, well, maybe not lastly, we want you to provide feedback on all aspects of the NAIRR pilot. We want to collect and synthesize all your challenges, lessons learned, and recommendations from all of you to improve the NAIRR operations and inform the transition to the full-scale NAIRR. And I also want you to take a little minute to think about what your personal goals are for this meeting. What do you hope to get out of it and make it happen? So next I want to turn it over to Lauren. She designed this program and is going to go over all the things that will enable you to accomplish those goals.
Thank you, Dana. You haven't all met me yet, but as Dana mentioned, I'm Lauren Michael. I'm Associate Director for Research Engagement at Internet2, and I've had the privilege now for 2 years in a row to leverage input from the community, from our program committee, and many others to help design a program that really comes out like a combination of a science conference and a PI meeting, because we're tackling several different goals here that kind of have a unique combination and depend very largely on the breadth of stakeholders in the room. So here's the program that we've got ahead of us. Day one today, following yesterday's tutorials, which were an addition this year, is really about getting everybody engaged, getting some of the communication flowing, both within and across stakeholder groups, because in day two, in addition to celebrating and continuing to celebrating impacts of the NAIRR, we'll be seeking your feedback and crowdsourcing across some breakout groups to inform the future of the NAIRR by reflecting in part on how the pilot has gone. And then we'll leave you on day 3 looking more toward the future, both the future of where AI is going and what that means for the future of technology resources and therefore for the future of the NAIRR. So I've highlighted here the sessions that are really celebrating and promoting collaboration and sharing experiences across the research and education projects. We have our first keynote after this morning's break. You already got Katie's State of the NAIRR address. And then this afternoon, there are tracks of lightning talks really representing the breadth of scholarly domains that are represented in this room. We have a poster session for a reception this afternoon, and then a trainee demo as well. In addition to the keynotes, we're responding to feedback from last year by having panels that cover even more projects in a bit of depth, but also sharing some experiences from those projects, from the AI education projects, including the CRA expansion project that you heard about just a bit, the NAIRR Deep partnerships that Katie introduced, and we'll hear about some projects in our panel on the future of AI algorithms and application, because those folks on the panel are allocation recipients as well. And then we've got a set of birds of a feather sessions across each day of the remaining conference program. Later this afternoon, we'll put you in groups where you can talk among folks with similar priorities to yours in developing programs around AI research and education and providing resources through the NAIRR. That includes an AI career pathways panel for students and trainees to learn about non-academic and alternative careers that do and support AI research and education. That will also include opportunities for our expansion and operations projects to catch up with one another in person. Tomorrow we'll have a set of themed breakout tracks where within each of those there will be breakout topics at different tables, and where we've got facilitators prepped to crowdsource feedback on the NAIRR program from all of you. And then on Friday, which is a half day, part of the morning we'll spend in stakeholder-based groups, getting your overall reflections on the NAIRR program and on the conference itself, partially to inform what the conference might do in the future. There are also a number of opportunities to engage with and hear perspectives from resource providers and industry partners. You can catch some of those across the BOFs. I already mentioned the NAIRR Deep Partnerships panel, but I especially want to draw attention to the office hours, both for resource providers and office hours to inform your future allocation requests. So these are opportunities to engage with industry partners, with federally funded resource providers. And you'll see in the program that we've already added the list of folks who are participating in office hours. So you can go to these rooms during that time and find a table with labeled for these different resource providers so that you can talk to them about an existing project, how to scale it, plans for a future project. And then of course, I already mentioned that there's that allocation proposals office hours in a different room as well. So those are come and go as you please, use the time as you'd like to. Feel free to go talk to more than one resource provider. These are meant to be sort of round table, casual discussions. And we're also providing you as fodder for gathering your input with updates on the NAIRR program. You already got some of that from Katie, and the questions that you were asking, I think, represent a lot of great ideas that we'd love to capture. So make sure that you're sharing those across the different BOFs. That includes things like how can the NAIRR better engage and promote awareness and onboarding and readiness across all institutions. There are a number of folks that are not yet engaged in the NAIRR. And that means that we've got to take different steps as a community to really and truly pull in and enable AI research and education impacts across the breadth of institutions, from small and community colleges to historically Black colleges and tribal colleges who are here, So be ready to listen to those folks. They've got ideas themselves. And I just want to take an opportunity. I know we've had you raise your hands a lot. So I may not have you raise your hands this time, but a very significant majority of those of you in the room are contributing to this program by presenting your work. And also importantly, to facilitating and moderating sessions. Beyond the program committee members who've been prepared for that, we have a number of other NAIRR community members who are facilitating sessions. Make sure you thank them if you get a chance. You'll also notice that we have scribes in each of the rooms. So rather than using AI to transcribe the different conversations that you've got going, we'll have you actually taking some of your own notes in the Birds of a Feather sessions, but we'll also have scribes across the rooms who are capturing content that then we'll use some AI to generate a final report from the meeting, just like we did last year. And that will inform future conferences, but also, again, the NAIRR program. So thank you all for these contributions. I think you should give yourselves a round of applause ahead of time. I know you'll do a great job. If you haven't downloaded it yet, please take this time, I'll leave it up for about a minute, to get the program app on your phone. There are QR codes here on the left for Apple and on the right for Google. You can, in this app, flag certain sessions that you're interested in. You can put information about yourself for other attendees to learn about, and then go and find information about other attendees. You can find the full program here in addition to the program that's on the event website. I'll leave that up again. I see people are still taking pictures, but don't miss out on that. We've also got information about the Wi-Fi network here. NAIRR 26 will work best in the basement. The regular hotel Wi-Fi is stronger on some higher levels. And we've got a password AI for all in all lowercase 2026. So you might want to write that down or go ahead and get your devices connected, but we'll also have that information shared in slides that are visible across the different sessions you'll break out into. All right, I think that's been up long enough. We're about to go to a break. And versus last year, for those of you who are around, we actually have this entire floor for the conference. There are rooms out to our right where breakout sessions are happening, and rooms on the other side of that white restroom block that you see on the slides here. Those are the Potomac rooms kind of back behind there that way. The entrance to the restrooms, because I know we've all had our morning coffee, are on the other side of that restroom block. So go out and around, and you'll find the entrances to the men's and women's restrooms. If you have any questions at all about where to find things, where to be, if you can't get the program app working, you can find anybody with a name tag that says staff and or visit the registration desk. If you haven't registered yet, please go check in. Or if you haven't checked in yet, please check in at the registration desk, get your name tag. That will help us make sure that everybody who's here is an invitee and is supposed to be here, and make sure that you can partake in all of the food and everything that we're providing. Anything that I didn't cover? Good. Okay. That means we're headed to a break a little bit early. So enjoy the break. Get those conversational juices and collaboration juices flowing. We're going to ask